You will climb a deadly tower to find the girl of your dreams, and must pass countless horrifying tests that will get harder and harder, killing everyone around you. Except your inner simp! If you watch to the end, I'll show you how to beat the Tower of Power in Tower of God. This tower will cause the deaths of 1 to 200 contestants. We see this girl, Rachel, running, but is stopped by her friend Bam. He loves her, but she says they can't be together because she needs to climb the tower and see the stars. She begs him to forget about her, but Bam refuses, just as she vanishes. He thinks he'll never see her again, but when the doors open and a voice tells him his answers can be found at the top of the tower, a large hand bursts out and drags him inside. There, this suspicious-looking rabbit thing named Hadon approaches him and calls Bam by name. Confusing him, he asks if Hadon knows Rachel, but he stops him and says all questions will be answered once he reaches the top of the tower. If Bam can pass this entrance test, a monster inside of a cage where he must reach this black ball and break it before the creature rips him to shreds. Bam rushes to it but is stopped by these two. One of them named is Yuri, and the one not named Yuri we don't really care about. Bam doesn't understand what they're saying to him, so they give him a translator that also acts as their lifeline in the tower. According to Yuri, Bam is known as an irregular outsiders who managed to open the doors to the tower without being chosen, which means just like in an anime, he is now the Neo of this show. She asks Hadon if he can skip the test, but Hadon says no and warns her if the king finds out she was here at all, she'll be executed. She lets him borrow her legendary weapon, known as the Black March, Sword of Jihad. Shocking her assistant, Bam charges in, but the monster spots him early. Yuri tries to help him, but Hadon forbids it as he gets swallowed. Thus ends the shortest anime episode ever. Actually, I'm kidding. He starts stabbing the monster from the inside. Hadon reveals the test is actually for opponents to overcome their fear of death by jumping into the mouth. Bam goes to break the black ball right as another monster shows up. Bam gets told by Yuri to ask the Black March for its strength. It starts glowing right as this woman appears, known as the Legend of the Tower. She thinks Bam wants to climb the tower for riches, but he says he just wants to save a friend. She is amazed and ends up giving him her strength, shocking even Yuri as Bam disappears and heads up to the next level of the tower. Yuri realizes, oh, whoops, she needs her weapon, so they go against the king's rules and follow him. The Legend of the Tower warns Bam that the woman he's looking for will have been without him for some time and will be different. But Bam doesn't think too much about that, and that's when Bam wakes up at the next test in the middle of a field. An announcement says there are 400 irregulars here, and they must now get down to 200 in a death match. The alarm goes off, and Bam spots his sword but gets caught by this guy, who gets tapped by this guy, who gets tapped by this guy, who gets shot by a sniper. A lot happens all at once. Aiming at Bam, he gets caught by this crocodile monster, instead who senses Bam's weapon in the distance, just as he runs into this white-hair guy named Coon, warning Bam that he's got no shot at surviving right as this monster named Gator shows up. Okay, Bam, you've done a whole heck of a lot wrong, but here's what you could do. The moment our boy Bam woke up, he should not have just stuck his head up without a care in the world in an unknown land. He should have been way more cautious. Bam knew he was going into a tournament of some kind, and there would have been some death matches, but even if he didn't, if I was him, there are some precautions I would have taken that are also standard practical guidelines during combat. If you fall on the floor or get confused during action, it's better to initially stay low to assess the situation around you first without exposing yourself and to stop being disoriented. This will allow you precious extra time to properly assess the situation. This would have also let us hear the rules of people screaming their boobs off, getting shot and dying around us, which would have let us know that we're in trouble. Because actually, having waist-high cover means I would have first looked around for our weapon, and then either crawl to it or crawl to areas that had better cover. Knowing this is a deathmatch of sorts based on the games of the tower means this area likely would have had borders where the main fight was taking place. Let's say I didn't have a weapon. I would have tried crawling to one of the match corners. Even if we didn't know exactly what we're up against, we're going to continue crawling away from the screams, which would have helped us sense how in or out of danger we were. In worst case, we could have looked around for any corpses we come across and directly hit under them if it came to it. This would have allowed us to take advantage of any nearby enemies still alive by taking advantage of how their brain works. Here's what I mean. There's something in the mind known as cognitive bias, which is when the brain jumps to conclusions that are not rational or even make sense. A lot of the times the person doesn't even realize this is happening, like by thinking one brand of car is more reliable when buying a new car even though there is not actual evidence for this. In the heat of battle, everyone's stress would be through the roof, most of them at least, which means everyone's fight or flight response is kicking in, and this will influence their thinking. This reaction would affect their focus, causing it to be way more narrow than usual due to adrenaline, leading to tunnel vision, which means they would have been much more likely to overlook subtle details, and would have more easily ignored any of the body bodies on the floor that were dead already. Keeping this in mind, since we would have listened to the rules, we would have known the goal is to get the total number of contestants down. Most contestants wouldn't have bothered double checking dead bodies for kills anyways. They would have kept looking for stray contestants in plain sight, since enemies running around would have been way easier to see through everyone's tunnel vision. Kun says he's looking for smarter allies to work with to get through the tower, and is about to leave Bam when he notices his sword interesting, and ends up helping him escape from Gator. He asks, by the way, how did you get this sword, the Black Marsh, from the princess? But Bam says he's only borrowing it while he looks for someone hiding behind this rock. Bam says he doesn't remember anything about his past before he met Rachel and thinks he belongs to her. Kun asks to team up with him since he knows the princess of Jahan, and that's when Gator shows up to kill them just as the match ends. Whew, close. The announcer says Test 2 will begin soon and everybody must now pair up with 2 other people. Kun and Bam trick Gator into teaming up with them. Now only 120 remaining contestants head to the next challenge. Kun tricks Gator again into not attacking Bam and says he should wait till Bam is stronger to fight, keeping him distracted with a treat. One of the test administrators comes in named Leoro. He's a ranker, someone who was able to climb to the top of the tower where King Jahad lives. And he's rather surprised that there is as many contestants as there are, and so he says we need a culling, and he creates a wall between him and the contestants made of the tower's power known as Shinsu, a magical energy that can be used by those who climb the tower. He says anybody who can pass through this wall will pass, but then he notices Bam still there. He wasn't moved, unlike everybody else, and Bam thinks there must have been some sort of mistake, but Lero says no, the water never makes any mistake, and he asks Bam to sit down next to him while Bam waits for the rest of his group to get through. Kun realizes Bam might be special as everyone focuses on trying to get through the wall. While so many contestants desperately try to get through this wall, Bam gets to know more about the tower. Everyone was born around the tower, but the inner tower can only be climbed by those chosen and irregulars, who don't fall in line with the rules of the tower. Bam secretly thinks this means Rachel came from another world. Lero tells Bam to not get too close to Kun just as the final contestants pass, and everybody heads to the next test, the red door. The remainders reach the third test location. They hear screams from other contestants in the next test. This lady invites the next team to enter, but this time they don't scream. Bam's team wonders what the next test could be, and then this weirdo offers them a hint and says the clue is the time. The ones who passed all passed before 5 minutes, so they must finish the test within 5 minutes or less. Kun thinks this guy's trying to scare him as they head on inside. They meet another administrator, Han Song-yu, who says they must open the correct door before the 5-minute timer ends, and they have one chance, and they've already been given a clue. Kun wonders why they put a clock in the room when they were all wearing watches, just as Gator kicks a random door open, shocking them, and they pass the test. Han Song-yu says all they needed to do was open a door. He tells Kun he can't always wait for things to be certain, and sometimes he just needs to get shit done without second guessing, because the world will never wait for his certainty. They reach the restroom with the other past contestants, making friends with these 3, Shibizu, Anak Jahad, and this monk tank top. Lero then shows up and says they've been granted a bonus test that will let them advance faster if they pass. Everyone agrees to play the crown game. The rules are, each team will try to take the crown for each other, and one of them must sit on this chair until the game ends if the person wearing the crown leaves the chair. The first group takes the stage while the second challenger group enters the fight. Bam's team watches as the 2 teams absolutely slaughter each other, but also spots someone watching him, and he thinks that someone might be Rachel. Shibizu's team goes up and they realize Anak is more powerful than they thought, and Bam notices his Black Marsh weapon is starting to go crazy. And that's when Anak blasts into Bam's cage and asks why does he have that weapon, and demands to have it. Her team gets disqualified for entering another team's corner. She tells Bam she has a similar weapon because she is the chosen princess of Jahad. She wants him to hand his weapon over, but Bam says Yuri trusted him with it. Lero stops her from killing Bam, stating they must follow the rules or else. She makes a bet with Bam, whoever's their last team standing gets each other's weapons. Bam tries to say no, but then he realizes even if he does win, she'll just kill him anyways. Bam apologizes to his team for getting them into this mess, but Kun says it's alright, cause he's special. They head into the arena for their turn, as the other teams race to get the crown. Until Kun announces the crown on the floor is fake, because he somehow made a copy, and whoever wins here will get the real crown. They realize Kun's bag is able to copy anything he puts into it, and all try to attack him while Gator stops them. Their team wins the round, and wait for the next team to show up. Other teams show up, but this one ends up backstabbing the other team, and Kun then reveals this was all planned. He made a deal with some of of the teammates during the first test to let them hide into his bag through the test if they agreed to help him, and him tying up his hair was the signal to team up. They passed the next round as Bam's team is still the reigning champions, and now this next group shows up with this mystery assassin fighter. They overwhelm Bam's team while he watches from the throne. These two cloaked contestants show up, but tell Bam they won't steal the crown, and he spots one of them and thinks it's Rachel, but he can't move from his chair to see. He wonders why he needs to climb the tower if Rachel is here. The assassin breaks through Bam's teammates' defenses and aims for the girl in the cloak, but Bam leaves the throne to save her right as a blast field erupts from Bam, cutting through the assassin, and Bam tries to get up and kill the assassin, but the Lord of the Tower shows up to pause time and put Bam to sleep, and no one wins the round. Bam, my boy, what you doing? Man, you are disappointing your team. He's such a simp. Let me explain. What just happened here tells us there is a bigger problem at stake, because if I was them, the moment the team was formed, I would not have just found out about their abilities, but also their past. Because, you know, Mike Tyson once said, the mind makes the fighter better than he really is, and the science backs this up. The past of someone in general makes up so much of a person's current mental state, and it shapes them through emotional conditioning, their thinking frameworks, their trauma and mental health, and even how resilient they are. This is why Mike was onto something, because like everyone here, the mindset of a fighter is almost more important than fighting, because it has no limitations. Before joining up with groups, I would have asked detailed questions about everyone here and their past, because this would have directly and indirectly given me clues about how mentally tough they were, how calm or not calm they were under pressure. Well, this seems complicated. Really all we're doing is just asking everybody simple questions, and would have easily told us how reliable Bam was. He is a naive kid who got lucky and threw himself into this crazy tower to just try and chase a girl, all while knowing this means bare minimum we could have not put him on the throne, and maybe looked into him as more of a wild card shield of meat type of thing. Later, Lero updates Hansong about the situation and finds out the real goal of the tower games is not to say who can make it to the top, but who is the most dangerous and a threat to the tower. He asks Lero if any of the candidates meets the criteria, but he says no, not revealing he saw Bam use Shinzu earlier, and wonders if he really is a threat or not. Elsewhere, Kun waits for Bam to wake up, but Rachel shows up with a request. Turns out she entered the game under the fake name Michelle. She reveals Bam was a simple loner who knew she was climbing the tower, who asked her to not go, but she had to follow her dreams. She begs Kun to not tell Bam about her and make up a fake story because they can't be together. Kun reluctantly agrees, not realizing Gator is peeping through the door. Meanwhile, Anak has taken Bam's weapon, but realizes it doesn't listen to anyone. This other woman bumps into her and warns Anak that's Yuri's sword and she won't be happy when she gets caught. Back inside, Kun doesn't trust Rachel and grants her wishes. Bam finally wakes up and finds out the fourth test has already started. They've now been assigned positions based on their skill set, and battles now will be fought in the positions they've been assigned. With 5 positions: close quarter fishermen, ranged spear bearers, light bearers that provide intelligence and light around different maps, scouts that help track enemy movement, and deadly wave controllers, which provide heavy support and support whenever Shinzu is used. They will now study their assigned positions, while some others get assigned later. Bam has been chosen to be a wave controller, but his training doesn't start for another day. He asks about Rachel, but Kun tells him that person was actually some rando and not Rachel at all, but assures him that he will find his girl soon. Over the day, Kun tries to gently let Bam wonder if Rachel really cares about him, but then acts like a dick and tells Bam to get stronger so he can find Rachel, which will actually help the team overall, so he's a team player, we think. Bam later meets other classmates like this orange one-horned guy named Ho and this sleeping guy. Bam sees their powers in action and thinks there's no way he can beat them. Later, Bam eats with the other contestants, making friends with this one girl named Androssi, while Kun makes up with Shibizu and Hats, who cuts ties with Anak after she went batshit crazy. However, she shows up and makes fun of Androssi for hanging out with lowlives, making everyone realize she's a princess of Jihad too. Anak tells Bam that he will never get the Black Marsh back. Everyone finds out that the princesses are not actually sisters, but people chosen to represent certain tribes. Later, the two sisters compete in another competition, trying to knock each other off of these podiums, but Androssi can tell Anak is an imposter princess, forcing her to reveal she came to this tower to kill all the princesses, revealing her troubled backstory. That since King Jihad was the first man to climb the tower, he now picks princesses to stay with him that can never leave him or have children, in order to prevent the spread of power. However, one of the princesses fell in love and had a child, but then was murdered by King Jihad, and that child was Anak. Androssi thinks Anak didn't have to work for her privilege and is spoiled, and the two wrestle off the battle area, both breaking their legs and losing the games. However, Androssi starts to feel a little bad for Anak's situation. News gets out about the sisters' fight, while the other contestants try to keep up with their individual position tests. For one of his tests, Shibisu needs to make a certain amount of friends before the day is over, so Kun convinces Androssi, who's now recovered starving to sign Shibizu's paper in exchange for meals delivered to her door, preventing Shibizu from getting expelled. Everyone starts to get along during training, but Andrasi catches Rachel keeping watch from a distance. She finds out Rachel's cover name here is Michelle, and is trying to hide from Bam while she reaches the top of the tower. But Andrasi says she hopes whatever's at the top of the tower is worth losing Bam over. Some more days pass as Bam gets better at training while Ho watches carefully. He realizes he's not getting better fast enough and might not pass, but then gets a mysterious letter telling him he can pass if in exchange for an evil favor. The next test is about to start, a game of tag. Ooh, we love that game. Everyone will be split into teams and will be scored on individual performance. Bam and Kun get put on opposite teams. The person who it is will be selected from the team's fishermen. To identify them, they will both wear this badge. To win, they must help their it person reach the goal or steal the badge from the other team. If they do this, they'll receive 200,000 points. But the opposing team ends up choosing this redhead examiner known as Quant's Blitz, who has unlimited amount of Shinzu. But Kun realizes that if they win, that means Bam must lose, so they come up with a plan. Shibuya acts as bait with the ball as redhead guy appears, but he knocks out their light bearer above, shutting down their eyes. But then this person steps in to be the lighthouse but gets pulled down, and redhead gets angry because they tricked him. Shibizu signals for plan B while redhead gives them 2 minutes to run because he's cocky. But Anak realizes she needs 10 minutes to reach the bridge to do plan B. Kun's group redirect redhead to take the stairs, where his team try to hold him off until Anak reaches but absolutely destroys them all. Okay, while Quant Blitz may be overpowered as a scout, he's not smart. He's got one big weakness. For starters, it makes no sense that the gang went through all this trouble to try and slow him down, because all they did was make it way more obvious who was the target and who wasn't. They already knew he was a ranker. By mobilizing most of their team to one location to act as a defense, all they did was really expose the person who was it. And any destruction of the defense would have immediately left this person a sitting duck. This is why I would have used something known as Wu Wei tactics to beat this guy. It's a concept from Chinese philosophy known as Taoism, which is actually about living in harmony with the universe. While this might seem crazy, this could actually work here. This Taoist concept of effortless action that basically teaches you to go with the flow without forcing anything. Using our group, I would have, instead of trying to merge together to stop the enemy, I would have used divide and conquer. Altogether, we are still weak against Quant, and trying to fight strength with strength would not have gone well. Instead, we used the concept of effortless action. I would have recognized our outmatch in strength and would have gone with the flow and used our group's size against him through misdirection by splitting up our teams into smaller groups during the game. This would have reduced the chances of being caught all at once and would have prevented Quant from knowing who to chase and caused confusion. This would have split his attention, targeting his main weaknesses, which is his lack of intelligence. Being unable to target everyone would have made him more frustrated, and him not being intelligent means he lacks control of his emotions, which would have only gone worse the more frustrated he became. All of this would have turned Quant from a strong opponent to a confused emotional wreck, which could have let us capitalize on this to win the match without any force at all. Redhead finally reaches the bridge, but sees Kun waiting, and he realizes his Shinzu is nearly out. However, he tells Kun he can sense Anak's lighthouse hiding under the bridge. Kun tries to play it cool, but Redhead tries to drag him under the bridge, knowing his glow will also disappear. And that's when Kun lets go and gets hung up by his glow, sending Anak back up onto the bridge. Turns out this was their plan to trick Redhead. Anak rushes for the finish line, but sees Redhead somehow show back up, confusing everyone as he defeats Kun's team. Leoro wonders how Redhead got back up and thinks Kun betrayed his team, but Hansen Yu says he can't, since he can tell Kun is loyal to his friends that he made before the test began, and Kun's team actually left many hints for Team B to help Bam win. Bam's team then starts their game, and Drosy gets chosen to be it, but ends up double-crossing them, and says while they're teammates now, they're still competing with each other to reach the top of the tower. But that's when Ho shows up, revealing he has an ignition weapon and tries to kill Andrasi, but Bam saves her, getting hit in the crossfire. Ho meets up Rachel and reveals he received a letter that instructed him to kill her, stating that if he got rid of her, then Bam would go too. Meanwhile, Bam tells Andrasi he needs to protect Rachel, even though Andrasi tells him she doesn't want him, but can't see her lighthouse activated and thinks something is wrong. Redhead then shows up in front of Ho just as Bam arrives and realizes the letter was a setup. He tells Bam to fight Redhead and show off his power or he'll kill Rachel, but Redhead quickly incapacitates Bam with Shinzu, saying if he uses this technique on Ho, he'll be able to save Rachel. As he leaves, Rachel tries to escape as Redhead stabs her. Bam uses the same Shinzu technique on Ho, but Rachel is bleeding out. Turns out Ho would do anything to reach the top of the tower, but realized he would never make it because he's not very strong, and kicks the bucket. Andrasi shows up instead of finding the exit and says she knows she'll pass and want to keep things interesting. The two attack Quant, but he manages to steal Andrasi's jacket, where her badge is stored. She walks over to him defeated, but then realizes she still has her badge and just stole his, winning the game. And find out the strange man that was following Rachel around has disappeared, making things even more suspicious. Everyone pretty much knows Bam Bam was looking for Rachel, who was disguised as Michelle this whole time. We see before the tag match, Kun found out this other candidate was gonna drop out of the competition and told him to watch out for Ho, and he was the one who set him up with the letter. Gator talks to Kun, who also just got shrunk by Hansen because he was being annoying. Kun tells him that Bam won't advance to the next level since he has no reason left to climb, but Bam shows up and says that Rachel's wounds are so bad she can't walk anymore, but he's decided to take her to the top of the tower and will still continue the climb up. They go to Ho's funeral where Rachel starts crying about leaving Bam before, but he tells her that it's cool because no one could ever replace her. Oh, and also one B character gives Shibuya her weapon before leaving the tower. Hansen announces that all the main characters we love has passed and will be advancing to the next level except Michelle since she's too injured and the rules are rules. But Bam makes everyone care for Rachel even though, let's be honest, she doesn't deserve it. And Kun says rules only apply to test administrators but not higher level guardian positions. For this reason, Kun asks to take the guardian's test right now to overthrow this rule because of his powerful family. Kun is familiar with the tower rules, but Hansen says only an irregular can take the test, which means Bam must do it, and he's forced to reveal this secret of his. He goes to meet the administrator while his friends get told if they help Bam, they'll be able to get up the tower faster. Bam comes back and says him and Rachel have gotten permission to take the test. Everyone gets told the final test will be an underwater mission against net dolphins. Hansen explains the rules. Dolphins gather food to feed the queen and use shinzu to create nets for their prey. Bam and Rachel will be entering in a bubble made of shinzu and must be eaten by the queen and spat out onto dry land after in order for them to pass the test. But Bam's team must protect the net dolphins from getting hunted by hunters, different types of monsters that will do anything to capture net dolphins. But Hansen warned them to watch out for the bull, a special type of monster that consumes everything it can sense moving. The team deploy while Bam and Rachel enter a shinzu bubble. Bam reveals to Rachel that he's realized his only wish once he reaches the top of the tower is her and to be with his friends. Since there's nothing else in life he wants, he's happy. But suddenly the bull shows up to attack Shibuya, but Andrasia and Anak show up to save him. Outside, the hunters start showing up, so Kun orders everyone to prepare to ambush them since they only have one shot. Back inside, Andrasi and Anak make a bet who can take down the bull first and go off to chase it, but it surprises Andrasi and captures her. Nearby, Anak runs into this person who calls himself Ren and reveals that she is a royal enforcer of the tower and knows, unlike Andrasi, Anak was born into royalty thanks to her mother who illegally fell in love with someone else and had her, and this is why she is an enemy of the tower. She reveals the necklace that her mother was carrying when they murdered her, sending Anak into a furious rage. Meanwhile, Anak tries to take on Ren but gets stabbed by him, calling her a mutt, and starts toying with her. The bull arrives back with Andrasi captured and says he was controlling it and has been waiting to kill her this whole time. He tells Andrasi she may live if she kills Anak for him. All the while, Kun's team outside accidentally alerts the monsters and quickly start getting overwhelmed. But Andrasi ends up not killing Anak and helps her, allowing both of them to tag team against Ren. He quickly starts getting his butt kicked and tries to escape and alert King Jihad, but gets stopped by another princess, Princess Yuri, the owner of Bam's weapon. She's been looking for him since the start, but stops to help her sisters. She spots her sword and easily defeats Ren and teaches him a lesson. Meanwhile, Yuri's minions look for her, but run into Hansen and alert him one of Jihad's assassins has entered the testing area. As they finally reach Princess Yuri, nearly dead, Ren then reveals to all of them that he can't let enemies like Anak and Bam live, and has sent another bull headed straight for Bam in the water. Yuri wants to interfere, but Hansen says if she does, then Bam will fail. She gives Shibuya a trinket to give to Bam, and says to tell him to head to the 77th floor of the tower as she and her squad leave. Just as the bull bursts through Bam and Rachel's bubble and eats Bam, but he starts attacking the bull from the inside, killing it as it crashes back into the bubble right before they get eaten by the queen. About to pass the test, Rachel suddenly gets up from her wheelchair and pushes Bam off the platform. We find out that Rachel has been planning this from the beginning. Hadon could tell Rachel was selfish and not worthy to climb the tower, and could see she was jealous of Bam and found him annoying. In order to get a shot at climbing the tower, Hadon challenged her to kill Bam with her own hands to show how badly she wanted to reach the top, and Hadon created a weapon for her in the form of her bodyguard that was following her around this whole time. The moment she heard Bam wanted to just be with her and his friends, once he reached the top of the tower, she saw his hand glowing and realized he was the star. Okay, Rachel basically wanted to be the protagonist and got told the position was filled, and then settled to be the antagonist. Because Rachel just doesn't have issues, she's got a whole publication of them, let's be real. Everybody here got bamboozled, but in reality, this was super obvious. Rachel, since the start, has been obsessed with power and goals, and this was evident in the obvious signs we've seen. From the start, she showed a willingness to betray and deceive Bam, was jealous of the attention he got, and never actually once cared for the well-being of others. And specifically, anyone could have noticed her inconsistent behavior. How she sometimes was too kind and vulnerable that seemed way too forced. Notice that, anyone? She also always hid and distanced distanced herself from others because she thought they would hinder her progress and never once showed any type of gratitude to anyone that tried to help her. All the signs pointed to someone who was deeply obsessed with goals and hinted at the lengths she was willing to go to achieve power. Anyone seeing Bam's emotions could have easily tell that he was in love, which meant he wasn't thinking rationally at all, and in fact was only one order away from Rachel, from going from a good teammate to her love-obsessed servant that would have been willing to do anything for her. Seriously, at least one person should have noticed the signs and questioned the dynamic here, jeez, because this is what screwed everyone over. Rachel returns to the surface but tells everyone they were attacked by the bull and Bam died, as Lero announces that everyone has passed the test and will continue to going up the tower levels. While everyone also mourns Bam's death, Lero finds out Hansen knew about all of this, but says all the decisions were made by her and they couldn't interfere. This makes Lero quit his post and takes Redhead with him to climb the tower in search of the truth, while Hansen says everything has gone to plan and all the princesses of Jahan think Bam is dead. Hansen then wishes everyone well as they go higher into the tower. Bokun tells Rachel that he knows she doesn't care about Bam because otherwise she wouldn't be here, and tells her he wishes he met him before her, but a previous tower participant finds Bam in another area passed out unharmed, protected by Shinzu. He doesn't know how he got here and asks about Rachel, but she tells him what Rachel did, and she tells Bam to find out what drove Rachel mad. He must reach the top of the tower to find the answers, because he has the potential to become the god of the tower, and offers to help train him. So guys, what do you think? Did you like the video or didn't you like the video? Let us know what you think about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to check out our How to Be playlist.